Good morning, afternoon and evening, my crazies. My name's Angela and I'm the Crazy Poppy Lady. I'd like to welcome you all to the very first episode of How Crazy Is This Crazy? This video is going to be filled with answers to your questions, basically. On Whips and Bits number 16, I did ask if you had any questions for me that you would like to be included or that you'd like to know the answers to. So, very first question in was from King Bamford, and her question was, do I have a large stash that's hidden all around my house? Or do I have a small stash that I can keep in one place? Or do I buy yarn for just the one project in mind? I've got a small one. When I first started out, I would literally just buy the yarn for the project I had in mind, because I didn't know how crazy I would get into crochet and whether I would still be enjoying it after the first, second or third project. So I had gone out and bought some little stackable boxes, and I had one of those stackable boxes that had the yarn in that I was using and that I'd bought. So I'm going to pop a picture in, and that was my first yarn stash. So then, of course, as I got more involved, I was really lucky because Aldi had a yarn event. So I went in and I only bought a few balls. I didn't go completely mad, not like I do now, but I bought a bit, and it was mainly whites and like whites so that I can make a job load of snowmen. So of course at this point my stash started growing slowly. Then I went on to Facebook's marketplace and came across a lady who was selling some yarn, and she was selling bundles of brands that I really didn't know anything about, because back then I knew nothing, absolutely nothing. I was working on my 3.5mm hook that I now use solely for my poppies. I only had one hook, and so I messaged her and I went and picked up the agreed amount. Now, me and her had been talking over Messenger, so when I got there she invited me in for a cuppa and we were sitting there chatting. Then she invited me upstairs to see her yarn room, so off I've gone to have a look, because of course, super nosy me, we've gone upstairs, and oh my, this room was a dream and a curse all in one go. It was a dream because it had floor to ceiling cubed storage. Now they're the ones from IKEA, I think they're called Bully or Billy or something, but the massive cubes, and in each of those cubes she could get 30 100-gram balls of yarn. 30. And looking at it now, I'm sitting here doing the count, and the count, if I remember rightly, was something at least five cubes high and 7 cubes wide on each side of the room. And then she, of course, she had like a hanging rail which had all of the stuff that she'd made, absolutely beautiful pieces of clothing. And then she had her delivery boxes because she'd run out of room, and they were stacked a bit like sometimes Crystal at Bag a Day shows us the corner of her room where there's like a mass stack of boxes. Well, this lady's room was stacked like that, and she had stuff not everywhere, it was all organised. She knew exactly where every bit of wool was, but there was just so much of it. It was like, instead of saying you take a kid to a candy shop, it was like me stepping into a Hershey's factory and being told I could eat and touch and do whatever I wanted with all of the chocolate. It was just immense. So, and she's there and she was saying how she was slowly sorting through all her yarn, so she was going to be putting more up because she wanted to reduce the amount that she had, because she was never going to get through it all, and she'd had to put herself on a forced ban for at least a year. And I sort of looked at her with a big fat grin and went, I can come and help you sort that if you want. I like sorting, I do. And she looked at me and she looked at the room and she's like, are you really sure? It's a big ask. And I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. And she's like, well, why would you want to? And I said, well, the amount of different brands you've got here and thicknesses and everything. I said, as we're working, I can ask you questions about hook sizes and everything else. And it also meant that I could get my hands on all that squidgy yarn. And then I would know straight off, basically, if I like the feel of a certain brand or not, then I could put that to one side, write it down and say, I'm never buying that. I'm not wasting my money on it. And so, bless her, she was like, okay then, we'll give it a go. We'll arrange a day where we're both free for a couple of hours and we'll have a go at it. And we're both looking at the room as she's saying a couple of hours and we're like, it's going to take more than that, isn't it? Well, anyway, I popped back a couple of times to give her a hand and we did actually manage to sort it all out. And she then turned around and told me that she thought I might be a bit OCD because I was putting every brand, like all the brands in line and all the colours in sort of rainbow order, and it looked a lot neater than what I have behind me. But by doing that and by helping her out, she also helped me to learn the different textures and the different weights of the yarns, so it's helped me out immensely. And I also got to feel different cottons, merino, and that's when I also found out that I was allergic to wool. Right, so I think that's really the only yarn that I haven't got round to showing you, because I basically bought quite a bit from her in the end. I got a massive box load and a bin bag, and I managed to squidge it in my car and get it home. I just didn't manage to sneak it through the door. But at this point I had learned how to hide yarn from my husband. It's called put it under the mattress of the bed, because we've got one of them lift up beds, so that was sort of filling up really nicely. And at that point as well, this room hadn't been sorted, so it didn't have any yarn anywhere. So he hadn't noticed until I walked in with that big box and bin bag. So the rest of my stash, you guys can all get to have a nose through if you pop on to the old stash videos. Right, the next question up is from Cynthia May, and she asked, what hidden talents do I have? Like singing? No. Playing piano? No, I can't get my head around musical instruments or anything like that. How long have I been crocheting now? I had to look back on this one. I started crocheting around September, October 2018. Now I know that's not been a mega amount of time, but I have got an earlier video which I'll try and remember to put a link to, that actually shows you some of the projects that I'd done over say 2018-19 and onwards. So it shows you the sort of things that I was making right from the start onwards. I'm sort of a little bit arty, as in if I've got a paint by numbers or something with really clear instructions and lines to do and to work between, then normally I'm pretty okay, which is where I think I'm so thankful that I came across YouTube right at the beginning to sort of give me a bit of a kick from some of the girls when it came to making some of the products. Right, next one up is from my Michelle Tui. Sorry, I've probably said your name wrong again, haven't I? Right, but her question was, what's my favourite yarn and a yarn colour? And then a little bit about Liam. I'm still exploring my favourite yarns. At the moment, the way I see it is, and the yarn I like the most is normally the one I'm working with, especially if it's nice and soft and cheap. And as for yarn colours, my favourite colour is normally a green, because it sort of reminds me of grass and sort of walking in grass barefoot and things like that. But I've noticed as I'm getting more and more yarns in, different days are different colour combinations. one day I will like extremely bright crazy, and the next day it's just calm and cool colours, and then another day it's something else, and it really is individual to the cake and the item normally that I'm making at that point. If I start making something and I don't like the colour, then I stop, rip it back and pick something else. Right, and the next question up is from Karen Collins, and she asks, what's my favourite weight of yarn that I like to work with, and what's my favourite hook? Right, so as I've stated on a few videos, my favourite hook is normally my 4mm. A favourite weight, I'm still playing, so I think I really like the smaller yarn, the thinner yarns for shawls, because it makes them more floaty. And definitely an Aran weight yarn for Aragurumi, because then you get a bigger thing. Right, next one up is from Julie Hannaford. She'd like to know, if I'm not crocheting, what do I like to do as a family other than holidaying? Right, where to start? My kids are a lot older than most, so they actually enjoy amusement parks, sort of the Disney and the equivalent over here. So we normally go to those because my youngest is a mega daredevil. So her and her dad go on pretty much every ride. Now my eldest is off at uni now, so she doesn't get to join in on as many family adventures. But normally if we go somewhere like that, then the husband and youngest go off and hit all the rides, and I mean all the rides, and I'm the bag lady because I can't go on many of them because I've got a dodgy back. So I normally end up finding the little arcadey place, or the arcade place I should say, and hit the 2p penny machines, or I'll sit and read whilst eating far too many donuts. And and now I crochet instead, so it's just a case of, oh, I made this while I was at so and so place. And then the favourite thing to do with the eldest and the youngest is normally Comic-Con. We're a bit geeky like that. We like to do the older dressing up as the favourite character at the time, and then going off and exploring and buying lots and lots of rubbish. Okay, now Marbelle is hooked. I'm sorry if I've got your name wrong there, darling. You asked, do I have any siblings? Yes, I've got one of each. I've got a brother and a sister, both younger than me. And do they live anywhere near? No, which is a shame. They live in the southeast of the UK and I live in the southwest now. The majority of my family still all live in the southeast. My next one up is Karen Allen. She's wondering what kind of books do I like to read. I'm a bit of a sci-fi nut, so it's either sci-fi or vampire or werewolf or fantasy, really. They're my two mains. I don't like reading anything that's true life, because I would get too involved with the character, and no, I just can't do it. And the last question for this session is from Gypsy's Yarnyak. Hi honey. She said, let's get to the question. I'm trying not to get the main comment, mind. How and when did she start crocheting? She started around the same time as me, actually. She's doing beautiful work. She goes for more bigger projects, whereas I'm more smaller projects, really, in the big scheme of things. If you haven't seen her channel yet, go and check it out. Some of the stuff is immense. Right, that's it for this episode. I hope you liked it. I can't wait to see what your comments are down below. Right, I'm going to head off now. I will see you all soon, so please stay in and stay safe. Ta-ra for now.